Yo, what to do, wealth champions? It is that time of the morning. It's Friday, so y'all know what that means. On the Cortez Hustle Show, we bring you the Black Economic Empowerment Hour, where we talk all things Black economic empowerment. We are wrapping up a series on what we call do for self. What would it look like if Black people provided for themselves the 5 basic necessities: food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security? Today, we are on security. We got a hot show for you today. We're going to recap the 4 previous shows. I'm going to give you guys a lot of statistics and numbers. And I want you guys to remember something, that if we are 12% of the population, what would it look like if we own 10% of these industries? So we're going to talk about that industry scope. We're going to talk about some practical application. I know a lot of people think, well, Cortez, how on earth can we provide security for ourselves? I'm going to tell you how. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. It's just a matter of us creating a vision and seeing all of the different possibilities. So you guys buckle up tight and hold on. Go ahead and comment in the chat your name of your business and or brand, what city you're tuning in from. If you're checking us out live on Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook. If you're checking us out on Instagram, go ahead and let us know if you have a business or a brand. I like to give free shout outs as we get these show underway. So let me go ahead and run my disclaimer real quick, and then we'll be right back to kick things off. The Cortez Hustle Show is a copyrighted production of iHustle Media Group. Any unauthorized use of the video, audio, captions, depictions of this show without express written consent of iHustle Media Group is strictly prohibited. iHustle Media Group, a better way to market.
And now back to the Cortez Hustle Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cortez Hustle Show. For those of you who do not know me, my name is H. Cortez, also known as the one and only financial health mentor, everybody's favorite fatherpreneur from myperfectmoneyplan.com. And you are tuning into the Cortez Hustle Show, which is always brought to you by Monetize My Life. This is a book that I wrote to help regular everyday people understand that you have a gift, talent, or special ability that was given to you by your creator. And if you're struggling to figure out how to make that gift, talent, or special ability bring in income, then I give you 4 incredibly simple ways to turn your passions into profit with little to no startup cost. All you have to do is go to monetizemylifenow.com. The book is yours absolutely free. All you have to do is cover shipping, ladies and gentlemen. Do me a huge favor. Go ahead and smash that share button and then comment that you shared. I would appreciate that. That's your cost of admission for tuning in to the show live. Mary Evans, good morning from the SOS Show. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Don't be afraid to go ahead and comment and engage with the show. Let us know exactly where you're tuning in from, if you're checking us out live, and the name of your business and or your brand. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have not been following the series, I will try to remember to link to all 4 previous episodes. But if you're not familiar with Professor Small's work, Professor James Smalls, he talks about not even us providing everything that we need for ourselves, but he says, when you're building community, right, he says every other ethnic group provides these 5 core elements for themselves, right? Food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. And if you look at some of the things that's going on in our community, joblessness is the highest of any ethnic group on the in the country. So we have the highest unemployment rate. We have the highest incarceration rate of any other group in the country. We have the worst sentencing when we are convicted of a crime. We do 2 to 3 times more time and are sentenced to 2 to 3 times more time than any other ethnic group on the planet as well. So when you look at us not being providers of the core things that we need to survive, my question is this: could we, in fact, what's going on, Courtney Holmes? Homes Insurance and Financial Solutions Group is in the building. When we look at these things, could we, in fact, be providing or eliminating some of the things that plague our community by going from consumer to producer of some of the core things? And the answer is a resounding yes, ladies and gentlemen, because if you look at other cultures who are providing for themselves, right? They don't have to worry about unemployment because they employ themselves, right? We, on the other hand, because we are not producers of many things, then we tend to have to seek employment from other families. I want you guys to think about this. And I choose the word family for a reason. If we look at it as a family or another nation, and we being a family or a nation, can we really and truly and honestly be upset with another family for not hiring us, for choosing to hire their own brother and sister before they hire us? Come on, I want you guys to think about that. I know what racism is in this country, and I'm not trying to discount that. I know what systematic oppression is in this country, and I'm not trying to discount that. But I want you to think about nepotism for a second. And if you think about it on a larger scale, I, being a Black man, being of a family, the Thornton tribe, right? I am Hernandoan, if you will, right? Can I get mad if I go to my white brothers and sisters, my Asian brothers and sisters, my Hispanic brothers and sisters, and can I get truly mad at them if they decide to hire their own brothers and sisters before me, and then say, hey, listen, I know you're qualified for this position. I know that you can do the work. I know you have the skills. However, I have some people that I love that I'm going to give this job to first and foremost. And if I employ all of those people, and there is more room for you, then we'll go ahead and bring you in, right? Is that really outlandish? When in fact we have the ability to provide jobs for ourselves, right? I want you to think about this. Clothing retail, this is just the selling of clothing. And I like to start with retail because that's where we are for the most part in terms of if we're starting a business of some sort, we're starting on the retail end, and that's okay. Clothing retail in America, we're talking about providing the 5 core things that we need to survive: food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. Clothing retail, $368 billion, right? That's clothing retail, $368 billion, right? Now, again, we're looking at, if we're 10% of the population, what if we owned and controlled 10% of that market? Well, 10% of 368 billion is 3.6 billion. How many jobs do you reckon we can create for our people at $3.6 billion industry if we owned and controlled just a piece of that? The clothing manufacturing industry, and this is the textile, making the materials that is later formed into clothing, right? 70 billion. 70 billion, right? So 10% of 70 billion, and I said that wrong, 368 billion, 36 billion would be the industry if we own 10% of the retail. And then 70 billion if we started turning raw material into things that can be created into clothing. We're looking at a $7 billion market share that we own and control, where we can employ our own people. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just if we got into clothing manufacturing and retail. What about food? if we provided food for ourselves, right? Food retailing, $5.7 trillion. So we're looking at $500 billion if we looked at 10% of 5.7 trillion, right? And this is just people who sell food, grocery stores, things of that nature. Y'all know we own very few grocery stores in our communities, right? We own we don't even own many of the corner stores that we used to own in our community, small retail, right? But food services, $969 billion, right? $969 billion in food services. So 96 billion if we own and control 10% of that. That is creating the snacks, that is selling the services, that is vending, that is restaurants, mom and pop shops, and all of that kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine the networks of distribution we create when we get involved in that area full time and full fledged, right? So food services, right? Food, clothing, shelter. What does it look like if we really took construction serious and not just from the trades perspective and getting a trade so we can go work for a big company, but instead mastering trades and coming together so that we can create construction companies and general contracting companies that will compete nationally, right? The construction industry, it creates 7 million jobs. There's 680,000 employers in the construction industry right now. So if we look at 10% of that, that means we would have 68,000 construction companies employing some 700,000 people in our community. I don't know if we really get it, right? I don't know if we really get it. And then let's look at safety. When we're talking safety, we're talking public safety. We're talking about the hospitals. We're talking about pharmacy. We're talking about those types of industries. Well, let's look at our safety situation, right? Medical supply industry is $239 billion. Do we have some engineers? Do we have some biotechnicians that can create the medical supplies that we need to fill our hospitals with the tools that they need to perform medical duties, right? So that'd be $23 billion if we had 10% of that industry. The health insurance industry, which nobody ever talks about, I don't think there are any Black-owned health insurance companies, right? I don't think there are any Black-owned health insurance companies. I know we have a couple life insurance companies, property and casualty insurance. I think Magic Johnson has even got an insurance company that he's building, right? But we don't have any Black-owned health insurance companies. And that is one of the things that's hurting our Black doctors, right? Because the health insurance institutions have a way of shutting them out from providing certain services and controlling how they do their thing, right? So that's $40 billion a year. That would be a $4 billion industry if we had 10% of it. Hospitals rake in $1.2 trillion, right? So $100 billion industry for us if we got involved in hospital. Big pharma, 1.3 trillion. So another 100 billion if we started to produce, manufacture, do the research and create our own pharmaceutical products. So that's the safety aspect. And today we're going to focus on the security aspect. What does it look like if we secured our own, right? We know right now we are in the midst of somewhat of an awakening, right? We see the work that Black Lives Matters is doing. We see the wake of the George Floyd, and that whole situation has brought police brutality to a tipping point. Now, we know Colin Kaepernick has been kneeling and has been blackballed from the NFL. We know that we've been dealing with this issue for since we came here, right? We've been dealing with being mistreated by the public servants that's supposed to be protecting and serving us. But what you got to understand is that public servants and in terms of policing in this country is all about serving the owners of property. That's why the entire institution was built, to protect property. That's why when you see the protests going down in the streets, the militarized police force shows up, and what are they doing? They're not there to protect the people. They are there to protect the properties, right? And because we own the fewest properties, because we don't own much at all, we don't get that same protection. In fact, we get the other end of the billy club, right? That's just the reality. So what would it look like if we policed ourselves? Well, if you look at all of these other areas, there wouldn't be a need for a whole lot of policing, because crime will be way down if we manufactured any of this stuff, if we produce any of this stuff, if we became big retailers of any of this stuff, right? Jobs will be way up. There would be a lot fewer D-boys on the corner if we had jobs within our communities, right? If we had these types of industries, then that would also create, by default, when you own and produce and create, then by default, you would have to also create the institutions that will provide for you your workforce. So when we got serious about building our own hospitals, we got serious about creating our own pharmaceuticals, we got serious about creating our own health insurance industries and things of that nature, guess what? By default, we would have to create the schools and the curriculums to bring our young babies up so that they would have a propensity to be able to perform some of these jobs and duties when they got out of high school, when they got out of college, right? We would have to create our own trade schools to prepare the electricians and the carpenters and the plumbers, right? So that we can dominate in the construction field. And what happens is, when you can go in and through a community and you can see opportunities for employment everywhere, listen, man, what we don't get is that a lot of our babies are not, they don't want to be on the corner. Now, I get that we have some of our youth are third, fourth, fifth generation criminals. I get that. But for the most part, most of our youth and our young adult men and women who fall into a life of crime, they had dreams and aspirations of being doctors and being veterinarians and being construction workers and being police officers. And all they had those aspirations. What happened to them? They continued to grow up in communities where they saw no opportunity. And when you grow up in a community where you don't see very much opportunity for yourself, and the few opportunities you see, the people who are participating in those opportunities don't have the lifestyle or are barely making it by, you start saying to yourself, that road is a dead end. So I don't even see that as an opportunity. And I'm talking about minimum wage jobs and things of that nature. Then you see the brothers and sisters who are involved in a life of crime, even though you're risking your life, you see more of an opportunity with that than you do any of the other legit deals. So we've got to do a better job of helping our young people see opportunities. And the only way you do that is by actually creating opportunities, right? So Courtney Holmes says, we own nothing in our communities and are allowing all our money to be siphoned away to other demographics. You are exactly right, my brother. We have the talent. We just need the resources and desire to do it. Brother, we have the resources, but you're right. We need the desire, right? We need the vision. We need the game plan. We need to be able to see that we can get it done. David says, I have been listening for years, brother, and I agree with you. I appreciate the continued support, my friend. Mary says, great point. Thank you for that, Mary. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, and when we come back, we're going to talk about this security thing, man, because there is a way that we can actually do a lot of the things that I'm talking about, but we got to start thinking outside of the box. And I have not heard anybody propose this in a very long time, but I found an article that I want to bring up some things that we can actually talk about and discuss. And you guys let me know if you think I'm on base, if I'm off base, if I'm off my rocker, all of those things. But let me take this quick break and we'll be right back.
Hey Treasure Coast, I'm Live Russ.
And I'm Teresa Russ.
With Focus Network Media. Wait.
Before you click out, we help business owners and online entrepreneurs get their own results on social media without having to be tech savvy or hire an agency by giving them step-by-step guidance with our program, My Marketing Mastery.
That's right. With everything that's going on right now, we're going to show you how to put ads just like this one in front of your clients. So click that link below. Sign up for the webinar. It's only $1 to join.
It's only $1.
Invest in yourself. Let's go. Peace.
Why should you take Focus Network Media's webinar on marketing mastery? Hi, I'm Wendy Conrad with Your Happy Workplace. And if you're a small business owner like me who wants to learn how to build your first Facebook ad or maybe just get better at building Facebook ads, you need to take Teresa and Russ's webinar. They give you a step-by-step startup guide on how to build your Facebook ads and also how to build them better. A lot of clarity in this webinar. Run, don't walk to register.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cortez Hustle Show. I am, of course, your host, Cortez Hustle, and we are talking about Black economic empowerment. According to Professor James Smalls, he said, man, if we just provide the 5 basic necessities that we need to survive, then we can radically change our situation. And I agree wholeheartedly. What are those 5 basic necessities? We're talking food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. We are on part 5 of this series. And part 5, we're talking all about security, right? What does it look like to provide security for ourselves? We know our relationship with police in this economy. We know our relationship with our government in this economy. We know our relationship with the prison industrial complex within this economy. So what does it look like if we took ownership of some of the things that are required of ourselves? So when I looked at some of the numbers, you'll notice that security industry in this country is a $35 billion industry, and that is private security as well as all of the ancillary things that come along with securing one's own property and private residences and things of that nature. So your security services, your home security systems and security consultancies and security analysts and all that kind of stuff. $35 billion. How much of that are we getting right now, right? Where is our ADT security system? Because y'all know, man, we've got Black engineers that can create that stuff. Right. Where is our national top flight security, where we provide neighborhood security in terms of protecting our own communities and outlining what it is that we want to see from our own security forces? That's $35 billion a year. Hey, Angelo. Thank you for tuning in. Hey guys, don't forget to smash that share button, man. I think more and more people need to be a part of this conversation, and I don't want to come off as the person who has all the answers, but I do think about this stuff quite frequently, and I just have to get my thoughts out, and hopefully you guys can appreciate this. Let's talk about gun retail, right? That's another part of safety and security. Gun retail, $11 billion, right? And I know what you're thinking, well, Cortez, we do not need more guns in our community, right? And that's because we have bought into the narrative that has been told to us that Black people are violent, that Black people are extremely prone to killing one another and that kind of stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, that goes back to the fact that we see very little opportunity in our community, right? And because of the relationship that we have with police in our community, you guys know that some of our young people are being raised in communities where they have never been outside of those communities. They are so frightened that if they venture outside of their community, they're going to run into police that are going to do them harm. I'm so serious. I grew up here in St. Louis in a town, a little community called Wellston, right? And it was poverty stricken. So same stuff that I'm talking about, very few opportunities being seen. So therefore, the opportunities that were presented were opportunities in the area of crime, drug trafficking, things of that nature, right? I can't tell you how many of my friends that I grew up with never left the area in which we grew up. I'm talking about, man, you want to go on the south side? Nope. You want to go out to the mall over in Clayton? And no. You want to go out in Chesterfield and go hang out? No, right? Because we were scared that if we left the confines of our communities, then we could find ourselves profiled, and as a result, find ourselves arrested, blamed for something we didn't do, locked up, all that kind of stuff, man. So that stuff is very, very real. But when you think about the fact that if we had opportunity in our communities, right, we would have far fewer people committing such crimes. Also, if those who are willing to commit violent acts against innocent people, right? Because you guys know there is somewhat of a street code. It's we're not, unless they're coming to rob an innocent person, most cases that stuff don't spill over into people who are not involved in that life. But if young folks knew that more Black people were actually armed to protect themselves, they would be less likely to run up in your home and try to do something to you. But I'm just thinking about gun sales and the retail industry of guns and ammo employs 80,000 people nationally, right? We don't have any of those jobs. We're not in that space, but we could be. And when you start out in retail, here's the progression. And this is why we've got to at least start with retail, because the progression says, if I start in retail, eventually I'm going to get to a place and say, hey, I can only make so much money on the retail end. And then you're going to want to start to wholesale. And then once you start to wholesale, you're going to ultimately start to say is, hey, I'm getting this stuff in bulk from a buyer and I'm making good money on the wholesale end. But what if I cut out that buyer and I went straight to the manufacturers myself and I become the buyer? And then I wholesale it to other retailers in my community. Eventually, as you start dealing with the buyers, you start to say, hey, what would it look like if I created my own small manufacturing operation and I actually took the raw materials and I created the ammunition. I took the raw materials and we created a lot of the products that go along with the gun industry, the cleaning oils and that kind of stuff, right? Eventually you progress up the chain till you start saying, hey, where does the actual gunpowder come from? How do I source that, right? How do I create the opportunities for myself where I actually source that. So we're talking about providing security for our own people. And what I really wanted to get into today, guys, is when segregation was the law, we created all of these communities all around the country, right? I'm gonna do a quick Google search because I want you guys to see something. I want to bring this up, but we've got to get back to that, right? We've got to get back to creating these actual communities, right? So before integration, we had no choice but to create these communities. And because we had no choice, it was a lot easier to actually do. See, we weren't allowed to cross the other side of the tracks and spend our money with other cultures. And I want you to, I keep using this word, other nations or other families. See, what we have to understand, guys, is Firestone is somebody's name. Walmart is somebody's name. Macy's is somebody's name. Gucci is somebody's name. Nike is somebody's name. So when we're spending our money, we're not only spending our money with another nation, we're spending our money with another family. So why aren't we looking to build family institutions that says, hey, in our community, we are the family or one of the families that creates and sells all of the shoes to our community. We are the family or one of the main families that sells all of the dress suits for men in our family. And another family says we are the family or one of the top families in our community that sells all of the dress clothes for women in our community. Right? So we've got to understand that when we had no choice, that's where the Black Wall Streets came into the play in Durham, North Carolina, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and East St. Louis, and all, because we had no choice. We couldn't spend our money anywhere else, so our money had to circulate. And I think this is one of the things that may cause fear in some of the other cultures. And I think I don't even know how I feel about it actually causing fear, right? I think it's one of the things that those in charge, right, who are creating these dynamics that puts us against one another. And when I say those in charge, there is, when you think about what we see in America as what we call race dynamics, right? Blacks against whites, Hispanics against blacks, Hispanics against whites, and all that stuff, right? We're like, man, that's just, that it's a skin color thing. Well, what about the countries where all the people have the same skin color, but the same dynamics are going on? They are split and they are divided based on some common ground, and the same infighting is happening. With us, it's just easy to see because of skin color. But when you go to other nations, like in Brazil and some of our Hispanic or Mexican brother and sister, they are all one people, but the division is the same. Why? Because there is another hand in play that we never point the blame to. And that is the elite. That is the people who are currently in power. The way they stay in power is to stay behind the scenes, stirring up mess so that nobody ever looks to them as the cause of all of this dissension, right? But race, because of our history in this country, is so overwhelmingly what is the word? It is so volatile. It is so dynamic. It is so there's so much pain there that we get really emotionally caught up in that. But at the end of the day, when you go into the African countries where everybody looks the same, they are still divided by tribe. They are still divided by background. They're still divided and compartmentalized. Why? Because if they were one unit, then they will all be pointing the finger at the real source of the problem, which is the power structure. That's why you see governments overthrown in other countries, because they realize that this is a divide and conquer situation. And I think one of the biggest threats to the power structure here in America is if race relations were healed. And, we see a lot of things that are coming out of this with Black Lives Matters. We see a lot of organizations and institutions starting to pop up to say, yes. We see a lot of our Caucasian brothers and sisters starting to say, listen, we can no longer turn a blind eye to that. And that is a scary thought for those who are really in power, right? Because they don't want that kind of drama. But when I look at the race riots, right, I want you guys to really pay attention to something. We know about Tulsa, Oklahoma. We know about that massacre, right? Because that's exactly what it was. But these race riots and the actual modus operandi for them all to be kicked off were exactly the same, right? There was usually a white woman who would accuse a Black man of sexual assault. And because of that, that ignited the anger within white men who thought that Black men shouldn't be touching their prized possession, a white woman. And as a result, that gave them the permission to go into Black towns and try to find the people who were reportedly, allegedly behind such heinous acts. And when Black people said, no, you're not coming in here with that foolishness, that's how the riot started. It's how it started in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's how it started in every other community. So if you go and Google, for instance, race riots, United States, you will see Elaine, Arkansas. You will see Washington race riots, 1919. You'll see Jenkins County, Georgia riot, 1919. You'll see Macon, Mississippi race riot. You'll see Chicago race riot. You'll see Baltimore race riot. You will see Omaha race riots. You will see Charleston race riot. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And what was really taking place during these race riots, y'all? It was the destruction of self-sufficient, Black-owned and Black-operated towns, townships, cities, communities. And it was the same modus operandi. There is an accusation, there is a proposed lynching or so. Black people stood up and said, hey, not today. And as a result, they came with even more violence and more force. And remember, every time there was the accusation took place, the people in those communities, the Caucasian people in those communities who came to search out and find the accused, remember, it was not just Blacks against whites. It was Blacks against white and the state. See, that's different. It's not like a Black community with guns and white community with guns, and we just hash it out. No, it's a Black community with guns, white community with guns, and the state and the county and the city officials and government behind them. And that just wasn't a fair fight. So fast forward to 2020. What are you proposing here, Cortez? I'm proposing that if we decided to go back to rebuilding our own communities, then that is the answer, right? But most people, every time I bring this up, they say, Cortez, you remember Black Wall Street? Guys, I'm going to give you my thoughts on that on the other side of this break, but I want y'all to keep it locked right here because we're going to go in, but we can no longer afford to be talking about Black Wall Street in terms of being fearful to create our own safe havens in our own communities. And we're going to talk about how we can rebuild them with consciousness of our history and make them bigger, better, and bolder than ever before. So y'all keep it locked right here.
What if a product existed that allowed you to lose weight while you got the best sleep of your life? An all-natural supplement comprised of herbs, extracts, prebiotics, probiotics, and enzymes that work naturally with your body to reduce stress, invoke a relaxed state of mind and body, while simultaneously accelerating digestion and metabolism, resulting in a great night's sleep as you burn calories. The result is you sleep better and you wake up lighter than you went to bed. A world leader in nutritional products, Be Epic, introduces Accelerate, a special 2-capsule combination you take just before bedtime. One prepares your mind and body for a deeper night's sleep, while the other gently works with your body's chemistry to accelerate digestion, flush toxins, increase metabolism, and result in a lighter, leaner you every morning. Discover for yourself the life-changing benefits of this amazing supplement. Order your pack of Accelerate capsules today, backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Manage your body and mind naturally with Accelerate. Visit the website shown below or contact the person who sent you this video.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cortez Hustle Show. I am, of course, your host, Cortez Hustle. And as always, we're brought to you by monetizemylifenow.com. It's a book I wrote to help people get into entrepreneurship based on their gifts, talent, or special ability. All you got to do is go to monetizemylifenow.com. The book is yours free. All you have to do is cover shipping. It will cover the 4 incredibly simple ways to profit from your passions with little to no startup costs. So we're talking about providing the 5 basic necessities for any culture to survive: food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. This is part 5 of a 6-part series, and we're talking about security. We know what happened to all of our Black-owned towns, right? From Rosewood to Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Greenwood, Oklahoma, even, East St. Louis. See, when we had no choice, we spent money with each other, and our money circulated in our community 8 to 10 times because we had no choice. We couldn't go spend our money with anybody else. And then what happened was they were able to, and I'm talking about other cultures, dominant society, white communities, they were able to unleash the power of media on the Black consumer as communities were starting to be desegregated. And as a result, they started to instill in us that the white ice is colder mentality. So a lot of people don't realize that after the bombing of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street was rebuilt, right? Most people don't know that part of the story. Those people are some of the most resilient people on the planet, as are most of us when we're hit with a catastrophe, right? We pick ourselves up and we go on. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma about 5 years ago, and on the historic stretch where Greenway, Archer, and Pine meet, right? They still own a single block of Black-owned shops, and they're fighting tooth and nail to keep Oklahoma State University from buying them out, right? Because the university has actually expanded and removed a lot of that history. But as you're walking down the street, they have these bricks in the street that say when the company was established, and then if the company was damaged or the business was damaged because of the riot, then they also have a reestablished date. And I think 70 or 80% of all the businesses were actually reestablished. So it was rebuilt. The death knell for Black Wall Street was integration. See, when there was no choice but to spend your money with other Black-owned institutions, you just did it because you had no choice. But when choice was introduced, where I can go get the exact same thing for the exact same price, but I can get it in a white neighborhood or a white-owned business, then I chose the white-owned business, and that was the death knell for Black Wall Street, right? A lot of people just don't realize that. However, if we were to rebuild a Black Wall Street today, it would be bigger, it would be bolder, it would be better. Why? Because now there's a conscious choice to say, I know the power of spending in my own community. I know the opportunities that creates job-wise, educational-wise. I know the sense of pride that comes in doing for self, and I know what that's going to do for future generations, right? But we also go into creating a new Black Wall Street armed with a history of all of these race riots that took place all over the nation. So what does that mean? That means we have to go into them not with the fear that they're going to burn it down again, right? But we got to go in it with the understanding that that is a potential outcome, and we have to start building in measures and mechanisms to prevent that from happening from the onset. And if it happens, then we're going to build it again and again and again. That reminds me of an episode of the Good Times, when JJ was teaching a guy how to paint, right? And his dad wanted him to go out and get a regular job. And he came back and he was trying to take him, and he was like, man, you gonna leave here, you're not gonna paint? And he's like, no, I ain't going nowhere, Dad. And he said, well, if you don't, I'm gonna beat your butt. And then the dad said, well, I'm gonna beat your butt. And the guy said, I'm gonna come back again. And he kept saying, well, I'm gonna beat your butt. He said, I'm gonna come back again. And he said, I'm gonna keep coming back till one of us gives out. Guys, we gotta keep fighting. We gotta keep building. We gotta keep progressing until one of us gives out. But what I wanted to share with you guys is this article. And if you go to slate.com, you'll see how to start your own town, right? And it just breaks down. The town of Clark, Texas, agreed to change its names to Dish on Tuesday after the town council worked out a corporate deal that will give every resident free satellite TV. So they call the town Dish, right? So it says, what does it take to incorporate a town? It says, though each state has its own rules on municipal incorporation, in general, you'll need about 51% of the eligible voters in the area to go along with you, right? In 2000, Clark hired a surveyor to draw up boundaries for the town that would be a little bigger than a square mile and would include 254 people, of whom 65 were registered voters. Now, I want y'all to see something, man. Yeah, insurance definitely. And insurance definitely is one of those things that you have to have, because those people in Tulsa rebuilt even though the insurance companies didn't pay the claims. Wait, what? Man, listen. Those people were so smart. They had it so together, and they were so closely tied and leaned on one another that the insurance companies never paid out. The business insurance companies, the homeowners insurance companies, they own their own homes. So when the homes got burned down and looted, when the businesses got burned down and looted, those people had insurance. The insurance companies never paid out, and they still rebuilt that community. Integration is what ultimately led to the downfall of Black Wall Street. When people were able to cross the tracks and spend their money in Tulsa versus before integration, they had no choice but to spend their money in Greenwood And that's why the economy was able to be built, right? But did y'all hear that it says this little community created and incorporated their own town? It says they hired a surveyor who drew up boundaries for the town that was just a little bigger than a square mile, and there was only 254 people in the town. And that was all it took to incorporate their own little section of town. Why do I bring this up, creating your own town? Because when you have your own town, then you have your own government. When you have your own town, you have your own government, you have your own police force, your own fire department, right? And when you have your own government, you have your own police force, you have your own justice center and department, and now you can create your own security, right? I talked about this last week. What would it look like? And this is what I mean by vision. This is what I mean by, outside of the box thinking. We know that there is a reality called the school to prison pipeline. We know that without a doubt. The school to prison pipeline basically is preparing our children, especially our young boys, by not teaching them and keeping them engaged in the learning process, where our young boys, they say if our young boys do not learn how to read on grade level by the time they are in the third grade, they are 80% likely to end up in jail, right? And as a result of that, that's what we call the school to prison pipeline. And we're sending our kids by the busload to these privately owned prisons, who, by the way, have contracts with the cities and the states that they are in to guarantee a certain percentage of the prison stay full. Wait a minute, Cortez, are you saying that if I owned a prison and I put my prison inside of Wellston, where I'm from, right, and I have a contract with the government in Wellston that says, hey, if I'm going to bring my prison to your community, what can you do to guarantee that 85% of my beds in this prison stay full? And that government, in a roundabout way, says, don't worry about that. We got enough crime here that we're going to make sure that people stay in prison in your beds. Right? It is crazy. But let me just throw this out as a thought. What would happen if we said, okay, instead of complaining about the school to prison pipeline, we know that a lot of our babies are basically caught up in this system for lack of opportunity within their community. How about we say, we're going to create our own correctional facilities, emphasis on the word correction, where we actually say, yeah, this person was picked up on a drug trafficking charge. Don't send them to the state prison. Don't send them to the federal prison. Send them to our correctional facility, where we actually correct the behavior that led them to prison in the first place. I'm just saying, that's just a little thought I've been working on, man. I don't know, man. Maybe I just see things. Maybe I'm too much of what's called an optimist, man. But I want y'all to see, it says to incorporate a town, you'll need a lawyer who can handle the paperwork. Do we have Black attorneys? Absolutely. Once you've decided on where to put your town, the first step towards Uville is to get a petition signed by some of the people who live there. In Texas, you'll need 10% of the voters. In Arkansas, you need to get 75 signatures, no matter how big the town is. An application for forming a town includes the signed petition, a proposed name, and in some cases, a proposed form of government. Do we have an attorney? Do we have our political scientists that can put a form of government in place for us? There are 4 basic town governments to choose from: mayor, council, council manager, commission, or representative town meeting. But some state laws limit your options depending on the size of your community. Once you complete your application, all you typically need is a yes vote from your neighbors and the approval for a county judge or state official. In some places, though, a town charter must be granted by vote of the state legislature. Listen, man. Listen, I'm saying there are solutions, y'all. I'm saying what we tend to do is we focus so much on the problem that the solutions seem tiny, right? Most people who will listen to this now or 50 years in the future would think to themselves, we could never do that, because they're seeing the problem as so grand that this as a solution seems tiny, so tiny that it seems virtually impossible. You see that in the article, it says this town was less than 1 square mile, right? Less than 1 square mile. So let me see something real quick. Oh, I want y'all to see something. 6,400 acres make up 10 square miles. 6,400 acres is roughly 10 square miles. So why do I bring that up? If this town was created from 1 square mile, and if I wanted a town the size of at 10 square miles, what does that mean for somebody like me who's got vision, who's thinking, generationally? Cortez, get your money right, man. Go buy you 6,400 acres of land somewhere, right? And then go hire a surveyor to come and draw in your boundaries of your 6,400 acres, Cortez. And then go hire an attorney to draw up your paperwork. Go get with some political scientists and see what's the best form of government. And then go get with some architects and have them design an actual city that you're going to build on this 6,400 acres. What kind of neighborhoods, what kind of shops, what is the downtown going to look like? See, I'm beyond the point of waiting for all Black people to make their mind up to do some of the things that we know need to be done, but we keep using the excuses that we can't come together to do them. Hell, I'll go buy me 6,400 acres, that's 10 square miles, and I start building. And while I'm building, I start the paperwork of developing the city. And in 10 years, the city is starting to grow. The downtown has got a couple shops in it, and the surveyors and everything is all in place. And houses are starting to go up, and people are starting to come and move in. You know what happens when you own 6,400 square feet, 6,400 acres, 10 square miles, and it's private land? You can actually interview the people that are coming to live on your land. And if you're not progressive in your thinking, if you're not pro-Black, if you're not building an institution, my first 100 families, if you're not business owners of some sort where you're bringing certain industries and institutions to the city, application denied. Come on, man. The solutions are here. The question is, do you have vision? Do you have the foresight? Do you have the will to dream big enough? Do you have the gall to take action to start bringing those dreams into reality? The solutions are here. Do we only focus on the problems so that we can keep complaining and never actually try to execute on the solutions? I'm just saying, man. Depending on where you live, you may face certain restrictions on your right to incorporate. Your proposed town may need to have a minimum number of people, for example, or it may need to be a minimum distance from other towns or cities. The description of where it should be very specific. For example, take a look at the charter specified boundaries of Dunbury County. What does that mean? That means, Cortez, before you go buy your 6,400 acres, you need to start doing some research. You need to know if this state, if this city, if these other towns around the city will block me from creating my own Cortez city. You need to do your research. You might need to go ahead and buy some politicians and get them in your back pocket, right? See, the solutions are here, y'all. But most of us are waiting for somebody else to do it, right? Anybody can do the job that everybody should do, but nobody will do the job that anybody could do, or however the little phrase goes, right? We're all waiting on somebody else to do it. I'm not waiting, man. I'm just patiently stacking my little coins, and I'm just educating myself on all these little things that could ultimately become big things if they are executed one after the other. I'm just, I don't have time to wait, man. And I do these shows and I put this information out there because what happens is when you put certain things out in the universe, right, the right person is going to also pick it up. And it's going to resonate and it's going to sit in their spirit and they're not going to be able to sleep at night. And then they're going to start getting their little pennies together, right? It's called the 100 monkey theory, right? And don't quote me on this, but it goes something like this, man. When they start feeding the monkeys food, they would drop it out of the airplanes and it would land and they would drop it out on the beaches, right? And the monkeys would eat it right there, but of course it had sand all in it. And then they showed a couple monkeys how to go and take the food and go run it into the ocean and rinse off the sand, right? And they said when about 100 monkeys start doing this with regularity and consistency, all of a sudden they would do the same thing all over the world. But when 100 monkeys in one location started doing this thing, they would drop the food off in another place far away from the original experiment. And the monkeys in that place, after 100 monkeys in the first place realized this is what to do, the monkeys in the other place would automatically know how to do it because we're connected in a way that most of us will never understand. And I don't even need to know how to understand it. I think because monkeys are not like us and put shoes and rubber soles on their feet and separate them from the earth, I think there is a connection through the earth. But then I also think about Tesla. There's a connection telekinetically through our mental situation. And I think those monkeys actually told the monkeys on the other side of the earth, hey, man, when you get food and it's in the sand like this, hey, just run down to the ocean and run it under the water a little bit, and then you're good to go. Same thing. Monkeys know how to take a stick and crack a nut. And once so many of them know how to do that, all of a sudden, all the monkeys around the world know how to do that. What the heck? All right, man, I know that might be a little too deep for some of y'all. Nevertheless, I put this information out because maybe I never get to be the one to execute on any of these strategies. Just maybe. I don't know. But I don't want to take this information to my grave. Somebody might go look up this article who's already in position to go buy 64 acres. Somebody might be listening to me in the next month, the next year, who just recently bought 6,400 acres that they don't know what to do with. They might say, I'm gonna build me a city. So food, clothing, shelter, safety, security. If we provide those things for ourselves, that's a game changer. And then from there, that's the jumping point for everything else. Those are just the 5 basics, but we already know what we do in the area of entertainment. We already know what we do in the area of sports. We already know what we do in the area of art, right? We already know that everything else can come on top of that. And now we create millions of jobs for our people, hundreds of thousands of business enterprise for our people, right? That's going to cut down on a lot of the stuff that we are facing. And that's how we become an economic powerhouse, right? And when you do that, so for instance, when you start building and you start creating and you start doing business internationally, this is how you form alliances, right? And this is another one of the biggest fears of the power structure, right? See, right now, Black people in America are isolated, right? What do they say a narcissistic person does when they meet somebody that they want to control? The first thing they have to do is get that person to cut off relationships with everybody around them. So they isolate the person. See, we are in a state of isolation here in America. But if we started to produce and we started to do business with and start creating alliances, then with those alliances comes a certain amount of protection, right? So if we, for instance, I'm looking at my little beads on my arm, right? Say these beads were made out of mahogany, right? And we start doing business with our African brothers and sisters who have a little bit of power themselves, right? And we started importing beads by the boatload of mahogany, right, from our African brothers and sisters. And when there is a threat to us who's providing millions and millions of dollars of revenue to our brothers and sisters by importing beads, you think those people won't come to our rescue? You think they won't stand in the gap for us to a degree? And that's just one institution. Then you start creating the same relationships all around the globe, but you don't create those relationships without an economic power source of some kind. You've got to bring something to the table that these other cultures can't live without. And as a result, they stand in the gap for you when police brutality is happening. As a result, they stand in the gap for you. You guys are seeing it happen right here in America. A lot of companies are starting to say, hey, Black Lives Matter. Is it Black Lives Matter or is it Black Dollars Matter? I'm just saying, man. I know we're over our time, man. I appreciate you guys hanging out, man. If you guys got any questions, comments, observations, make sure y'all leave them in the comments, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Instagram, whatever the case is, man. I just like to try to open up dialogue. I try to open up people's mindsets, get them thinking bigger, getting them to see solutions so that they don't focus solely on problems. And that's what the Economic Empowerment Hour is all about here on the Cortez Hustle Show. So with that, we're going to wrap up this thing. Next week, we're going to talk about the 5 stories, the 5-story building that that Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, right? Get your economic base down packed. That's what we're talking about now, getting our economic base down while providing the same food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security that we need. We're providing our basic necessities, and that also gets us an economic base, right? But then you get your economic base, then you got to go after your politicians, then you go after your media, then you go after your police force, then you go after and build your education. We're going to talk about that next Friday on the Black Economic Empowerment Hour Cortez Hustle Show. And then Monday, you guys know I always bring you a dynamic entrepreneur, or in this case, a dynamic entrepreneurial couple. Stephen and Teresa Rush from Focus Network Media will be on Monday talking about how to leverage social media and the fact that social media is the new TV and you are the star. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the channels, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of the places, man, so you do not miss a beat. Appreciate you all. Until next time, get your money up because you absolutely can do it. But more importantly, you deserve to do it. Each and every single one of you. Now hustle up.